Here we are again, my friends, pressing forward. Isn't the semester over yet? This week we're talking about conversations and about developing good listening skills. First of all, let's talk about conversations. In the textbook, conversation is defined as a spontaneous, friendly exchange you strike up with someone else. Well, while you do have those in the library, many are just forced on you because people come and they ask you questions. Or sometimes when you step in and directly ask them if they need some help. Often the initiation phase, because of that, is just solved for you. But sometimes you do have to be the one to reach in and strike up a conversation. And also, it'll be your responsibility to keep the conversation going until the patron can articulate their information need. Now, conversations have a life cycle, believe it or not. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And there are lots of ways to start a conversation. In the library, probably the easiest is, can I help you find something? With coworkers, it can be, hey, what's up? Can we talk? Small talk can be very important in developing a conversation and a relationship. How do you, and I will emphasize that oftentimes in previous semesters, students have said they really don't like small talk and they don't think it's important. But I'm here to tell you it's very important with both coworkers and patrons. How do you engage in small talk at the public service desk? Probably best not to leap directly into gossip. Gossip is generally bad. It can be very destructive, both to those who hear it and those who spread it around. I think most library conversations are along the lines of the problem consideration model. Patrons come in with a question, and you're there to help them solve it. 2 suggestions for your conversations when dealing with the public, and of course these are things that you learned in your first job at Target or Walmart or McDonald's. Number 1, always reiterate what they need to do. You, of course, know the library's website like the back of your hand, but as you're walking your patrons through finding a database, it's best, because after a few clicks they'll be completely lost. Try saying, so let me just show you one more time where to go to get to this database. And then they can tell you if they know what they're doing already. Always leave the door open for further interaction. If you need help or if you have any further questions, just let me know. Basic customer service. Now, the $64 million question is, how do you end a conversation? How do you disengage once you're trapped? Everyone has their own methods for doing this. If you read the Wall Street Journal article in the beginning of the semester, they talked about having a few kind of stock phrases like, I've really enjoyed talking with you, but I need to... or things like that. You go back and read that article. Usually I tend to make nonverbals. I check my watch, look around the room, clear my throat, and then I just hope and pray that the other person has read the chapter on nonverbals and will know that those are nonverbal signals to end a conversation. Don't forget to take turns. It's amazing how often that skill or that courtesy just slips away from people. There's just nothing more rude than finishing people's sentences. The rules of conversation are very important. Please review those. There are many library applications. One that comes immediately to mind is the quantity maxim. It's especially important at the reference test. Somebody comes up, asks you a question, and boom, you know the answer to this. You know exactly where to go. You've helped another patron with this. And so you turn on the fire hose, bubbling out far more information than they really need. So quantity. Appropriate quantity. And just keep on back to self-monitoring. Try to have that out-of-body experience. Try to see the conversation from the other person's point of view. Also in the readings, we read about effective listening behaviors, and this is incredibly important with vendors, with patrons, with coworkers, with supervisors, with boards, with everybody. All of these may control your fate at some point, and you'll be wishing you'd listened to them then. There's a quote from the chapter, "Listening creates reality." If reality is what we have inside of our heads, then listening is the information intake that fuels our perceptions of what's going on around us. How you listen depends on how you'll hear your patron's question, how you'll hear your coworker's concern, or the vendor's sales pitch. As you have seen or will see when you read the chapter, there are several different kinds of listening. In interpersonal situations, we're looking mostly at empathic listening. At work, we have to expand that to more comprehensive listening or engage in critical evaluative listening. The important thing is to constantly ask yourself, what is the person trying to say? Now, I recently heard a story about a guy who attends a meeting with his father, And the guy is just bored stiff, thinks the speaker is terrible. But then he looks at his dad, and his dad is smiling like it's something super fantastic. And afterward, he asks him, what is going on? And the father replies that he always asks himself, what is the speaker trying to say? And once he understands what they're getting at, then he kind of fills in the blanks, gives his own speech inside of his head. And since he learned to do that, he's never been to a bad meeting. Something to think about. You can always ask questions to clarify. I've always thought that this is one of the absolute best ways to demonstrate interest in what the speaker is saying. It also helps you to stay awake. That's how I got through graduate school in library and information science, was asking ridiculous questions just to stay awake. And just a note on, as you're interviewing for jobs, oftentimes the potential employer will ask you, do you have any questions for us? And always, always, always have a few questions ready. Not having questions sends a red flag that the interviewee is not really very interested or hasn't done their research. But asking questions means that you are interested and that you do know a little bit about the organization. So also in the chapter, some good suggestions for remembering things. You know, the older I get, the worse I am at remembering things, remembering people's names. It's terrible. But repetition, mnemonics, taking notes, all good suggestions. Finally, evaluating information. Of course, I don't have to tell any of you about that one because you're all information professionals in embryo. But before you make hasty decisions or jump to conclusions, ask probing follow-up questions to make sure you're understanding everything and getting it right. Okay, that's enough for me. Have a great week. I'll see you in the discussions.